Hello, and thank you for tuning in. Welcome to another episode of Talking Point. I'm Lynn Weaver, and our topic today is the housing crisis in California, which has become especially acute during the current COVID-19 pandemic. My guest is Matt Levin, the data and housing dude, as he's called at Cal Matters, where he works. Cal Matters is a nonpartisan nonprofit committed to explaining how California's state capital works and why it matters. Matt's work is extrapolating complex policy topics into easily understood charts and graphs, and finding and writing original stories from data. He co-hosts Gimme Shelter, the housing podcast that highlights the serious lack of affordability when it comes to renting a place to stay. Matt's award-winning housing and data reporting has been featured on Marketplace, NPR's Here and Now, and the San Francisco Chronicle. Matt is a former research associate for the Public Policy Institute of California, where he specialized in quantitative analysis of poverty and social policy. He has a master's degree in public policy from UCLA and an MS in journalism from USC. But as he points out, he'll always consider himself a Cal Bear. Welcome, Matt. So the first question I want to ask you is homeless people in hotels, especially in the Bay Area. Could you comment about that?
Yeah, sure. So Governor Gavin Newsom, a little over a month ago now, so it's been a little while, announced this goal of we want to open up over 50,000 hotel rooms for people who are experiencing homelessness in California to protect them from the novel coronavirus. And this kind of seemed like an intuitive solution on a few levels. People, especially epidemiologists, are very worried about what an outbreak in a shelter or a homeless encampment would mean, both for people experiencing homelessness, but then for the broader population too. It seems like that could be an environment where the virus could spread pretty quickly. Yeah. But also hotels, nobody's staying in a hotel right now, right? It's an industry that is struggling, to say the very least.
For sure, yes.
And so this seemed like an intuitive solution, right? People need housing. Let's at least temporarily put them in hotels and motels. And that way they could be protected from the virus as well. So originally this goal was 50,000. It got kind of scaled back to 15,000. The state has acquired about 12,000 hotel rooms as of yesterday, and about 5,000 have actually been occupied with people who are homeless.
Matt, when you say has acquired, the state has acquired, can you specify a little bit what that is? Is renting it?
Yes, so it's a little complicated. That they have entered into leases with these hotels and motels. It's the state and counties the counties are really the lead on this. They're the ones that are actually inking the deals. The federal government is picking up about 75% of the tab. So they're really the ones that are paying for it. The leases are like 60 to 90 days typically. And then some of them have an option where the county could buy the motel and convert it into permanent housing as a longer-term solution for homelessness.
Yes. Are these 5-star hotels?
So it varies. You know, there are some actually pretty nice boutique hotels that are doing this. There was one in downtown LA, which I'm not supposed to name, but if you go to its website, you'll go, oh, wow, this is a very nice hotel where people who are homeless now have the option of staying. For the most part, though, these are motels that often have a pre-existing relationship with homeless services providers. So these are in parts of towns that are close to where there is a significant homeless population, where they're parts of voucher programs. So county authorities are already using those pre-existing relationships. So you shouldn't be thinking of the Ritz-Carlton. You should be thinking more along the lines of a Motel 6 or independent, smaller motels. Those are typically the ones that are participating in, and certainly a better option often than, sleeping on the streets or sleeping in a shelter.
Yeah. Have you heard of any resistance from the hotel owners?
So the hotel owners actually are pretty enthused about this idea. And again, that's, primarily because of the economics of their industry right now. They want that government money because they got no income coming in from a convention or tourists or wherever. So interestingly, talking to people who are actually involved in these operations, finding hotels and motels hasn't been the problem. The hotel and motel operators, though, are worried down the line what happens to their properties if they want them back. So let's say they don't want, they don't want to sell it to be converted into permanent supportive housing. They're a little worried, okay, is the state really going to let people who are homeless kind of kick them out of these hotels after a couple months, and the optics of that? And are homelessness advocates going to pursue litigation to keep them in the hotels?
Yes, understood. What I would like to know is find out a little more about you. Now,
oh no.
As I said, simply, what are the circumstances that brought you to this point of your life? You're a very, very well-educated man. You're a Californian, and can you tell us a little more about you? Because I think that's important.
Sure. So I started off my journalistic career at Berkeley, where I went to undergrad. Thought I really wanted to be a reporter. I worked at Frontline at the PBS show for a little bit, just doing like fact-checking stuff. I worked for a trade magazine covering private equity, which people now know because of Mitt Romney.
Yes.
And then I in 2008, the world looked pretty grim, actually kind of similar to how it looks now. And so I decided, I could always do a little math, and a career as a policy wonk, as some type of researcher, sounded appealing. So I kind of switched gears and got a master's in public policy at UCLA, where I boned up on statistics. Started working for a think tank, got a little bored, missed journalism, and then kind of came back. So that's what kind of brought me here to Cal Matters, kind of a blend of policy and journalism and data. And then housing specifically, I'm a millennial. Everywhere I've lived except for Sacramento, I've lived in New York, I lived in Seattle, the Bay Area, Los Angeles. It's all insanely expensive places. And I noticed we weren't really covering housing all that much. And to me, it was one of the defining issues. So I kind of just unilaterally moved into that space, and now here I am.
Well, thank you for that. And you are indeed correct. It is a defining issue.
Yeah.
Especially for millenniums and very old people as well. Sorry, I could say seniors, but for everybody, really.
Yes.
And it isn't the same, not quite as bad in other states of the United States. California is particularly bad.
We're the worst. We're the worst.
Worst, yes.
Yeah.
I don't really want to go there, but I will. I think this is because of Prop 13.
So I don't think it's exclusively because of Prop 13. Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of people will use Prop 13 as a everything that's wrong with California, period, is because of this initiative we passed in the late 70s, right? And I think that's kind of simplistic. Yeah. It basically is a big break to homeowners and commercial real estate owners where, once after you buy your property, how much your property taxes can increase isn't related to how much the property value is going up. It's just kind of indexed at about up to 2% per year. It's a rough way of framing that.
That's right. Yeah.
Other states provide other types of property tax breaks, but nothing as kind of large and generous as Prop 13 provides your average California homeowner.
Yes.
So the housing implication here is we're in a housing shortage. Part of the reason why prices are so high is because we haven't built enough residential housing. People left of center and right of center will agree on that. It's not a partisan fact, right? But Prop 13 kind of dilutes the incentive for cities and local governments to approve new housing. So if I'm a mayor of, let's say, Davis,
yes,
and I have to choose between, there's a vacant piece of land and somebody wants to develop it, and I got one plan that's a apartment building that's like 4 stories, and I got another plan that's a Target. I'm going to get a lot more revenue for my city government, more money flowing into my coffers if I approve that Target, because Prop 13 will limit in the long run how much I can get from that apartment complex or even a single family home. Not to mention, if I approve an apartment complex, I got to provide services for all those people, right? I got to give them parks and schools and things that cost money. So in the long run, a lot of local governments have been opting more for big box stores than for housing. That's part of the reason we're in a housing shortage. It's not the only reason, but it's part of the reason.
I believe that this November, Prop 13 will be reproposed for voting.
So what's going on the ballot in November wouldn't affect residential homeowners. So if you're in a single family home, or if you're in an apartment complex, it wouldn't touch it. It would be for commercial property. So it would basically take away the Prop 13 benefits that major entities like Disneyland or Facebook have that are giving them pretty good property tax breaks. Californians love Prop 13. It's not just the business community. Property owners love Prop 13 too. It consistently polls really well. So it'll be interesting to see what exactly happens in November, especially in a climate now where we are very likely in a deep recession already. By November, most economists will say it's still going to be pretty bad. I don't know what the appetite's going to be like for. I think the business community will have a pretty compelling argument saying, you guys are going to raise taxes on us now when the entire economy is struggling.
Yes.
So I think the dynamics around that initiative have changed pretty dramatically.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you'll be able to collect a lot of data at that one point about that. Yes. Now, let's talk a little more about our topic, which is housing crisis. I'm thinking particularly about the students who have suddenly switched from having a home or a dorm or something to being with their parents or relatives or having nowhere to go.
I think homelessness is actually especially acute among K-12 students and higher ed students.
Really?
It depends how you define it, but it's significantly a problem, especially in, unfortunately, a lot of California's premier universities are in some of the most expensive parts of the state, right? So Davis, where you are, it's expensive there.
Very, yes.
Berkeley, so UC Berkeley, UCLA, UC San Diego, UC Santa Cruz, UC Santa Barbara. These are all like the nicest, some of the most expensive parts of California. So that definitely plays a part in this. It'll be interesting to see what happens now in terms of the urgency with which the state confronts the housing crisis, because I
Yes.
think you are going to start seeing single family home prices and rents actually drop.
Why is that?
Because in most recessions they do.
Okay.
Demand kind of softens,
Yes.
and the insane increase in especially single family home prices that we've seen statewide. It was
Yes.
over $600,000 on average for a single family home in California just a couple months ago. I think you will start, most economists will say you will start to see some type of decline there, and you'll probably see rents decline as well. But what happens in those circumstances is the decline in the cost of housing does not come down as far as people's incomes, especially at the lower end of the income scale.
Sure.
So, there's an estimate that about we're facing a shortfall of 1.3 million housing units for low-income Californians. That number is going to go up.
Oh.
And it's going to be very difficult to finance the construction of affordable housing for that segment of the population in this environment. I mean, the state doesn't have money now. Local governments don't have money, and the feds can provide more money, but they have a lot of other things that they have to address too. So, in any type of recession like this, there are going to be, winners and losers, which is a crass way of saying it. But
yes, of course.
If you're able to maintain your income and keep your job, your rent and the opportunity to buy a home might be easier for you to manage now. It really might. If you've lost your income, and especially if you're at the lower end of the income scale, things are going to get really, really rough.
Yes, more than ever.
Yes.
Now, I'm sure you've been writing, and I know you've been writing, and I'm sure you've been thinking quite a bit about this. And I wonder what might be an easy solution, if there is an easy solution, or maybe several solutions.
So I think one silver lining to the pandemic specifically could be these hotels and motels.
Okay.
So specifically, if we're talking about, the more than 150,000 Californians that are homeless on any given night, the state has never attempted anything like this before, right? Physically bringing in people from the streets into housing this quickly and this rapidly. So if they are able to convert some of those hotels and motels into more permanent housing solutions, I think that could be a very positive development in terms of making a dent in that 150,000 figure. People who work in this space are clinging to that hope. Like, okay, this is bad, but maybe this is finally an opportunity for the state to really try to fix homelessness.
That's very interesting because those buildings are already there.
That's right.
And so there wouldn't be any additional building costs, perhaps. Yes. And then
that's exactly right.
What about the students at the moment?
So I'm not
in their cars,
I know, yeah. So I'm not sure. That's a tough one because UCs and CSUs and community colleges are seeing huge budget shortfalls already, and it's going to be rough next year. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure what the easy solution is there. Online learning is now the de facto kind of state of things, right? For many universities, and you can do online learning living with your parents if you have that.
Yes.
If that's possible. Yes. So that's kind of a somewhat convenient solution, but I'm not sure beyond that what can realistically be done given kind of constrained resources.
Yes. Yeah. Matt, what are your future projects? What are you working on at the moment? By the way, I really admire your work and your contribution
thanks.
to our state And I'm really impressed with Cal Matters. They really try to do a good job for the community. So
Thanks.
Kudos for that. So what are you working on at the moment? And, what other expertise are you acquiring?
So a few things. The piece I'm currently working on, which will hopefully land end of the week, or my editor will be very mad with me again, is on what the state might do to help renters who can't afford their rent anymore because they've lost their job. This is going to be a huge problem. It already is. The state put forward kind of this eviction moratorium where it's landlords can't really evict you from your apartment, let's say right now. But they could in a few months once the state of emergency is over. Knock on wood, it actually is over at some point.
Yes.
So advocates are fearing, okay, once that happens, are we going to see a flood of evictions because people can't pay their rent? So I'm working on that story.
That's a very good topic. And I hope you come to some more data. And,
I hope so too.
And some more results and maybe solutions. Thank you so much, Matt, for your time and for all you do for the state. And keep on doing what you do because it's wonderful.
Thank you so much, Lynn, and thank you for having me.